Tales from the Carnival, an audio autobiography of 18-year-old Buckley's summer as a carny. Nearly 2 hours of stories about drunk children, lot lizards, horrible business practices, and potential crimes. Listen to a free chapter and buy the rest at adoseofbuckley.bandcamp.com. The sport of boxing is a fucking joke. This isn't new. It's been that way for such a long time. It's a sport that's marred by long-time accusations of corruption that no one's ever really tried to fix or even assure the public that those problems have been solved because, how do you solve that problem? Ask organized crime nicely if it'll stop interfering? And it suffers from horrible promotion. ESPN lists about 50 professional world champions across all sanctioning bodies and weight classes, and if you could name 3 of them, I'd be extremely impressed. The general public learns about one fight a year or every 2 years, and there's always some sideshow act like Floyd Mayweather fighting UFC mouthpiece Conor McGregor, or this upcoming Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. fight. Both guys coming out of retirement for an exhibition because, as I just mentioned, the general public couldn't name 3 current champions with a gun to their head, or possibly worse than a gun, Mike Tyson's fist. The thing about boxing is, it should be more popular. All the casual UFC fans that are like, I like the UFC, but I hate when one guy takes another guy down, and then they're on the ground for half the fight. I just want them to stand up and try and knock each other out. That's the fun part. They should make a sport like that where they can't even go to the ground at all. The sport you're looking for is boxing. But you know what's more popular than professional boxing? Well, besides literally every other sport. Celebrity boxing, tough man competitions. It's literally the one sport that is actually often more fun to watch when the competitors are people who have no fucking idea what they're doing. Watching amateurs play hockey or football or basketball is just boring as hell, but watching 2 idiots swing wildly and trying to knock each other out is always exciting. Bonus points if they're kind of fat, or if you really dislike one or both of them, which is probably why so many people wanted to watch Logan Paul and KSI fight. No one tuned in with the hopes of seeing an incredible display of technical in-ring abilities. They wanted to see one of these obnoxious fucks get badly hurt. And so, Logan Paul, with a professional record of 0-1, that's 0 wins, 1 loss, has been rumored to fight the previously mentioned Floyd Mayweather. Floyd is nicknamed Money for a reason. He clearly doesn't give a shit about the sport anymore. If he did, he'd have immediately tweeted or posted on his Instagram when these rumors started, "Absolutely not. I only fight boxers, not internet goofs cosplaying as fighters." He was paid a guaranteed $100 million for fighting Conor McGregor, who also earned his shot at the former champ by just being obnoxious, so obviously, Logan Paul learned something from that. But Mayweather earned reportedly over $300 million when you factor in his percentage of the ticket sales and the pay-per-view buys. And then he took a massive pay cut, earning only $10 million, to go beat up a Japanese kickboxer in about 2 minutes. $10 million for 2 minutes worth of work. Not a bad gig if you can get it. He hasn't fought a real boxer since 2015, which is fine because he's supposed to be retired. He's 43 years old. In combat sports, that's elderly. You're risking serious CTE fighting even into your late 30s. Now, who knows if this thing is actually going to happen? It's still rumored. Some people are saying it's actually fucking ink to fucking paper. Other people are saying, no one's agreed to this, and that Floyd's actually gonna probably say no. But it shouldn't take a boxing expert to tell you how this fight should go if it goes. But you just so happen to have one anyway. I boxed and coached for over a decade, and while that was several years ago, the great thing about boxing is that it effectively hasn't evolved at all. So, all my knowledge is still relevant. Let's break this down. Logan Paul's latest fight against KSI shows massive flaws that, should be expected from a guy with 2 fights. His hands are constantly down. At no point is he protecting himself. When he throws a jab, that's a left hand, his right drops to his hip instead of moving to his chin to protect his open face. He'll get countered by a real fighter all day doing that. At no point in the fight does he seem to put together anything resembling a combination, so you know that when the left hand shoots out, there's nothing dangerous coming after it. He doesn't even know how to throw a proper double jab. He's just throwing single jabs, bringing his hand all the way back each time. He's incredibly flat-footed, he stands in front of his opponent and has no semblance of head movement, and there are moments where it looks like someone might have told him how to properly circle an opponent at least, moving away from the right hand, but then he circles toward it several times, and again, with no guard. If an actual boxer was in the ring with him and not whoever this KSI goober is, this would have ended very badly for Logan. Now here's the actual logistical problems with this. Logan Paul's last fight was at cruiserweight, about 200 pounds. The heaviest that Floyd Mayweather has ever fought at is 154 pounds. Even in an exhibition, weight classes generally exist. You can fight at catchweight, which basically means the fighters are in two separate weight classes, but at 50 pounds difference? If this wasn't Floyd Mayweather, if Logan Paul was calling out a professional fighter that was at the start of his career as well, that was 50 pounds lighter, everyone would go, "You're a fucking bully. Challenge someone your own size, you fucking puss cake." Which I will say, by the way. You know, Logan, the WBO Cruiserweight Championship is currently vacant. Not that you would be anywhere near the fucking rankings to qualify for that fight, but use your internet fame to get an undeserved shot at that title and see what happens when you fight an experienced pro that's the same weight as you. But it is Floyd Mayweather, who's had 50 professional fights and over 90 amateur bouts, and has no doubt sparred countless rounds while training for fights. Except for those 2 months in jail, he's practically lived his life inside a boxing ring. His father was a boxer. He's been training ever since he was a child. Won his first Golden Gloves at the age of 16, 2 years before Logan Paul was even born. That's right, he's been beating people up for longer than Logan Paul has been alive. Logan Paul's had 2 fights, both against another barely trained wannabe. The difference in skill is, well, almost unmeasurable. It's chess grandmaster Garry Kasparov versus a child who just learned that the horsey is called a knight. It's Gordon Ramsay versus you, who during the pandemic finally learned how to cook chicken that wasn't frozen and in finger form. It's one of Michael Vick's pit bulls versus one of Paris Hilton's pocket dogs. Yeah, my references are so up to date, I know. Anyway, Logan Paul is a professional boxer in the same way that I'm a professional voiceover artist. Yeah, I've been paid to do professional voice work, but that doesn't mean I'm in the same league as fucking Billy West or Frank Welker. But this is a no-lose situation for Logan Paul. He calls out Floyd Mayweather. If Floyd Mayweather says no, Logan Paul gets to go on fucking YouTube with a video called "Floyd Mayweather's Scared of Me," get a few million views, and his drooly followers can wet themselves in the comments section over how badass they think their boy is. And legitimate news sites actually cover the story, as they have been. If he says yes, fucking Conor McGregor made a minimum of $30 million. I'd get fucking spanked by Floyd Mayweather for $30 million. Shit, I'd do it for $3 million. Logan knows that no matter how hard a 150-pound 43-year-old can hit, it won't cause his 200-pound ass any more brain damage than he already has. His corner can throw in the towel if it gets really bad, or he can just stay down after the first knockdown, and he'd be even more set for life than he already is. And if he lands even like 1 or 2 punches, the world goes apeshit, and they go, "Oh my god, this guy can actually hit a professional boxer." So even if he loses, that's a win. Now, someone may inevitably say, Buckley, if you boxed and you think he's such a loser, why don't you fucking challenge him? Well, because I weigh even less than Floyd Mayweather. For Logan Paul to come down to my weight, he'd look like Christian Bale in The Machinist. For me to come up to his weight, I'd look like Danny DeVito. The only internet celebrity in my weight class is probably Ben Shapiro, which, if I had $10 million, I'd pay it to fight him. The thing is, if this happens, it's both good and bad for boxing. The bad is negated by the fact that, like, everything about the actual business of boxing is bad now, so who gives a shit? No one's sure what's a legitimate fight. Even legit fights aren't really legit fights. Every up-and-coming boxer that has a record of like 10-0 almost definitely fought hand-picked opponents who had no chance of winning. Cans, as they're called in the business. A lot of it is still controlled by organized crime, and there's absolutely no promotion for boxing outside of freak fights like this one, or the super fights that happen like every 3 years or so, like Wilder Fury or Pacquiao Mayweather. The good is that maybe this brings some attention to a sport that's been hanging on by its fingernails for years. Maybe even get some younger fans interested. Logan's got like 18 million Instagram followers. If a fraction of that became regular boxing fans, that'd be great for the sport. But even that gets fucked up when instead of when to take a dive, the mob is telling fighters, "Alright, in the third round, you do whatever the most popular Fortnite dance is, or you're never fighting in this city again."